Although the initial impact of being released from the limiter still caused some momentary chaos, everything slowly began to settle down. We began the search for the Anima Relic, so the catalyst to transform gears into Omnigears. In the past, 10 relics had been discovered. These have about half of those are in the hands of a ministry.
Okay.
According to Zephyr, there should be several more relics in the land. We knew then that Solaris would most certainly be searching for them. There was no way we could allow Solaris to have them.
Of course.
We visited the place where, using arcade records, Zephyr and their people had been able to get clues on about the relics. Following the information we obtained from there, we headed towards the ruins of what seemed to be an ancient civilization. Essentially a Zeboim ruin facility, but anything but any moldy. Again, this is mostly just a dungeon pure and simple with some minor gimmicks, but otherwise no real major dialogue until the very end of it. For this, I will allow Doc to bust up his Omnigear, who I forgot to mention until now, thank you very much. And I will allow Ellie to rest a bit, and since finally, the game actually allows me to actually use...
I was about to point this out.
No, she's also... Finally, the game allows me to use Emeralda properly in full capacity. Mind you, this is the first occasion where you're actually allowed to use Crescents, full and through her gear. Might as well take that opportunity. Why not?
And mind you, I guess everyone except for Choo-Choo was supposed to get an Omnigear eventually in the game.
No, I had to squash that potential vote immediately. There were plans to do that. Yes, we're gonna get two Omnigears, two gears upgraded to Omnigears. Our party, I will not tell which, but other tools will not, unfortunately. But they were planned, complete with concept art that I will show at the proper moment.
So in that case, gameplay-wise, what's the point of using anybody who doesn't have an Omnigear at that point?
Because power level-wise, they managed to still be on par. The Omnigear thing, outside of having that kind of power boost, is mostly also for story reason than anything.
Okay.
Also, yeah, sure, Shitan forgot that he had an Omnigear.
Like, the official excuse, supposedly, is that it was in Solaris all the time, and it was connected to the fact that he did not want to use a sword, because Fenrir is actually equipped with a sword, or as an Omnigear. But it's still kind of a flimsy excuse, and again, kind of a dick move, especially considering, if you remember, Shitan only had to say something like vague terms or educated guesses when it came to the Omnigears, when people like Bart, raised the question or obtained Elandvari, when he fully knew about everything regarding Omnigears, and still had to either lie or omit for information just because he had to add these stupid neutral stance before actually the climax in Solaris.
And this is not something that was affected by the story, because, I'm sorry, they could have handled Cheetah much better up to this point. Now, mind you...
no, I'm pretty sure it's intentional. Not in a case of, we forgot to do this thing, or, like, it's deliberate, and sure, like, it is still frustrating, but on the other hand, I can also see the intent, on doing it. And I don't want to, as much as I think it's a dickery and everything, I don't want to use it as a point against the game.
I mean, okay, look, to be fair, we have mentioned that Cheetan, while kind of entertaining in his dickery has not felt as intentional given how the game regards him, and to a point, it does feel like the way Cheetan was written in Disc 1 was kind of a bit of a problem here and there. Oh, hey, Shopkeep Johnny.
This is essentially going to be your portable shopkeeper for most of these tools because of these dungeons.
Shoot, come to think of it, where's Hammer?
Hello, fellas.
Hello,
fellow traveler. Sorry.
We'll have to eventually find out where Hammer actually is, don't worry.
And now you've switched to Emeralda.
Yeah. Hello, fellow travelers. You know how at the end of every final dungeon there's this convenient place shop so you can do some last-minute shopping? Well, this is that shop.
Yeah, not even kidding.
I will admit...
They basically have that kind of logic, yes?
I actually noticed something. Something dawned on me as we were watching that big full party member screen. Rico at this point is basically how Soji was in Fair Fencer F. He's literally become the completely forgotten character in the background.
I'm asking you only because it's been actually a while and you know me, but I kind of suck with the names on the long term. Who is Soji again?
The butler.
Right, the blade of Pippin.
Remember, they even had a skit where he says that he's perfectly okay and conforms with the situation, and you were even ones who were going, screw you, game. When they did that. So.
Soji was arguably one of the better characters in that game.
But it's even worse, Joe, because like Teres told us, the reason Rico is like this is because of, necessity, because, Takashi had to delete something.
Okay. That being said, mind you,
in Fair Fencer F, it's intentional. It's done for a joke, and it's a very badly done joke.
I mean, I hate to say it, I found Soji to be a better done character in Fair Fencer F. Mind you, I am not by any means saying that Fair Fencer F is a good story, but I feel like Soji was at least handled better. Like, sure, his thing just more came from, not as much exposure as other characters. Rico's problem seemed to stem from the fact that they hype up an arc for him, only to pretty much stop that arc dead in the water, and he not only gets robbed character-wise, but also gameplay-wise, because sure, he starts off strong, but then later on, gameplay-wise, he really pales in comparison to a lot of other people who get much better buffs along the way. Like, at least with Soji, whenever he still showed up, I still felt like he was part of the adventure. Did the game not focus on him as much? Yeah, sure, but at least I never felt like the game could be completed completely without him, story-wise. This, I feel like, really, story-wise, we could have done this all without Rico as soon as we leave Kislev. Like, sure, in Kislev he helped out, but ever since then, Rico could, for all we know, just be a part of Faye's imagination. Mind you, back to what I was saying about Cheetan, though, like, I think even Pedro mentioned it, that the problem with Cheetan is in the sense where, okay, if you're just loving him for how much of a dick he comes off as, that's fine. The thing is that...
No, Cheetan!
Oh no, Cheetan's down. How will I ever cope?
Oh, how will we cope?
Anyway, the thing is, like, well, I feel like if they wanted to portray Cheetan as sort of this lovable dick, I feel like the story needed to call him out more for stuff here and there. This is the guy who literally developed a bullet that forces someone to drive and commit suicide, and no one so much as raises an eyebrow when he admits that he's the one who created that kind of death machine. Like, holy hell. Like, it kind of becomes meme-worthy to the point where he has all these secrets and then essentially becomes a triple agent. Like, the only way this can get more convoluted is if it turns out that Cheetan is both the big bad and the big good of this game, and Faye is actually Cheetan all along.
No.
Oh, okay, let's be honest. Would you put it past Cheetan at this point?
It depends. I can tell you what I was pondering the first time that I played the game at this point. I was wondering where they would go, but I did notice that Cheetan kind of started falling out in terms of, significance to the plot. So I was pretty confident that his arc was essentially done in in Solaris, and while still having something to say, the rest of the game would, be dedicated mostly to Faye and Ellie, which, yeah, it kind of is.
Oh my god, in a way this kind of mirrors Final Fantasy VIII, but I will give the game a positive. Emeralda is cute as a button in this gameplay. Well done with the animations there. She's so cute whenever they win. She's so adorable.
Again,
one of the things about this, the 32-bit era of gaming, is that whenever a developer went for sprites, for 2D sprites, because of the higher power of the Sega Saturn and the N64 and the PlayStation, they were able to achieve a higher level of sprite animation that you wouldn't see in the 16-bit consoles.
Again,
so yeah, a lot of these games really aged well visually because of that.
Again, I mentioned this, but also Castlevania Symphony of the Night is also the prime example of that.
And I will say this, stuff like the Project Cross Zone games are a great throwback to the sprite era, now with even more pixels to be used.
See, compare this to Final Fantasy VII, a game that visually aged worse than this one, because because since we're using sprite artwork that looks great because it perfectly captures the 2D artwork. Whereas, of course, because of the limitations at the time, Final Fantasy VII's character models can't even begin to properly capture what Nomura's designs look like.
Like, you know, I
could say half and half because, yes, what you said is true. To compensate that, the pre-rendered background, at least for the time being, were standing on their own. So if it's a situation similar to the Resident Evil GameCube remake happened, where the models themselves were actually upscaled, and well, to an extent also the background, because as we saw with Final Fantasy IX, it kind of needs to happen, you know, for the widescreen 1080, you know, kind of resolution. Don't worry, this is essentially the fact that this dungeon as a gimmick. The thing about this dungeon, while not, you know, heavily on dialogue and story, they do possess some minor puzzle elements. In this case, you have to reactivate the power in this Zebulon station, but that's it. But so if they did something similar for Final Fantasy VII, something similar to the GameCube version of the first Resident Evil, I probably could have worked for the better. The closest we do have is a mod called New Nightmare, which aside from adding new content, it does kind of like that and gives the models a bit more, you know, polish on that. It's not a perfect kind of work, but it is at least a step in that kind of direction.
I will give Final Fantasy VIII this. I feel like Final Fantasy VIII was the realization of what Square probably thought about but backed off of doing at the last second. Whereas Final Fantasy VIII just it realizes the visuals that could have happened at play here. No, gone are the chibi models, and now we're full body models essentially. And the visual graphics were really ramped up.
Again, shame that it's all wasted for a world, you know, and in terms of not necessarily the art style, but you know the kind of presentation for the world that are uninteresting at best.
Because that's the thing. One of the big issues, like we've talked about in the playthrough, with Final Fantasy, is the lack of world building is absolutely baffling, considering how 7 did so great with that. And it's just like remember Timber literally stops existing before we're even done with disc 1. As far as the story is concerned,
existing after its first mission. Sure, yeah. you can come back later to that, and there are a couple of things minor things that you can do, but otherwise it might as well not exist. I know that it's a thing that's also typical to a lot of Final Fantasy games. It's not like it happens only with that game. You know, like say for example, Final Fantasy II, where one city might not be important after visiting, but what makes it.
Obviously, they can't make every single city come back in some meaningful way. With Dole, I'm actually okay with too. It's Timber that, like I've said various times in the playthrough, it's Timber that I have most concern because remember, we were introduced to Rinoa as a leader of the resistance for Timber, and her entire plot regarding that is completely abandoned, and Rinoa basically just becomes Squall's love interest, and that's all she is after, basically. That's all she is at this point. Like what defined her as a character before Squall came into her life basically disappears, and that's what I have a big problem with.
Okay, yeah, obligatory fuse counter joke. Essentially, again, Faye needs to get fuses to actually, you know, put in the box in order to reestablish the power.
So bringing things back to the story of this game, though, I do have to say, though, that again, that Disc 2 syndrome, as I'm going to call it, is really showing because we just essentially dealt with a plague where people are being turned into mutated creatures.
We're not completely done with that, Jova.
True. However, the segment upon which it's dealt with made it feel a lot more simpler than it actually should feel. And I guess the evil council was now dealt with by the Emperor, so...
No, it was just, you know, pushed back. We're actually gonna see them again very soon.
Okay then, fair enough.
Again, while, like he said, while it is true that some stuff, well, a lot actually, was actually cut away or abridged, at the very least, the core plot and the very more important elements are explained and showcased in full force.
Oh yes, they're explained and whatnot, but the fact that a lot of them has to be explained makes a lot of things... No,
I don't mean explain again. I mean show it to you like it would have been in this one, you know?
Oh, so you mean like that? Because, you know, technically we have been getting told a lot of what happened lately, with pictures as well.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But no, otherwise, this is essentially, that is also the reason why a dungeon like this managed to survive, because there wasn't that much that they needed to add onto that, so there was only minimal work that they could apply to actually do this.
That said, though, you do have to admit that the fact that a lot of the stuff is told does make some things feel simpler than they actually were, with how it's just, oh, let me tell you a story of how we did it, instead of seeing the true struggles of it. Like, that in and of itself can make stuff feel super easy, barely an inconvenience.
It depends. It really depends. While something might be, it's still not just because it's summed up.
No. I didn't say that it is. What I'm saying is that that's what it can feel like as a result.
Well, you know what they say, Joe, but facts don't care about your feelings.
Take your feelings and go.
Alright, let's put in the code that I already know if I recall correctly.
That being said, though,
23 is number 1.
But when I've seen to you, even you have expressed annoyance with how Disc 2 goes, and I can see...
Okay, well, obviously, because, you know, I would rather have, you know, more content than being abridged, but, you know, having to not like the game because of the state that it actually is, not really.
I didn't say you weren't going to dislike it because of that. I was just saying it's like, well, just pointing out how it can be annoying. Again, I'm not passing judgment until we get to the end.
Alright, this is actually a cool idea. This particular set of boxes actually essentially tells you the solution of the puzzle. It's kind of like in a point-and-click game, where it's given to you by those lights that you see in the fuse boxes, and it gives you a general idea, but you have to essentially finish the job on your own. Alright, so 0,
okay.
3,
and
2, and 0.
And you blow up the base.
Thankfully not. So.
Well done,
that was me laughing, apparently.
I guess.
Essentially, this is required because in order to get the Anima Relic, we need to actually, you know, use the elevator. Is this the one? How about that one? Let's just tap buttons all everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah. Ah, yes, of course. Let's employ the selfie tactic. Just press whatever.
Emeralda, do you know anything about songs about trains?
Yeah, train, go away. Yeah.
That's not how the song goes.
Okay, we will learn later exactly how technological advanced the SCWRM was. So yeah, we could have easily have trains on that.
I remade the song from the perspective. Okay, I don't hate trains, but imagine someone who did hate trains remaking that song. That's the way I did it.
Oh, it would be trains. Fuck those trains.
Surprised that they didn't make you know, a car spin-off about trains. They already have one about planes.
Yeah, you know, legend goes, if someone hears every time that song is played, Selfie's eyebrows start to twitch angrily. She doesn't know why.
Sure. But yeah, now that you're actually on the bottom row, if I recall correctly, you just need to activate the central panel, and after getting down on that, you'll be able to actually get the Anima Relic.
If I may, with my earlier point, though. Again, Mike, I'm not saying the game is bad for it, and I do get why it is. However, it still does come up as a problem. Like, that's because they had to do it doesn't mean that it's not something that can't be critiqued. And it does feel weird how much we have jumped around because of it. This is not helped by how much it clashes with not only how Disc 1 was going, but how Disc 2 started. Like, that's the thing. Disc 2 actually starts off naturally, and then immediately we just start going into narration after narration. I feel like if they really did have to do this, they could have maybe have tried to find a way to prep the viewers.
This is also because of the way it was paced, Jova. You know, it took us one part of 40 minutes, mostly because there was a lot of that, at least dialogue. A normal run for a player will clear this section in around 10 minutes.
Pretty much, yeah.
So the submission should start arriving very soon anyway.
And mind you, if the game had been nothing but stellar up to this point, this might not be as big an issue. But as we pointed out, the game even up to this point was a little half and half here and there. So again, this is once again trying the players' patience. Mind you, in here, it's not so much about of how long it takes, but more just how weird and things. Granted, I assume that if a player's been lasting this long at this point, that they're probably just gonna stick it out for the rest of the game. But it is a shame that I feel like it is about of weighing that stuff here and there, because, you know, you never want a game to feel like it's a test of patience, in a bad way, mind you.
It depends.
Yeah.
Alright, sorry, go on.
I think we can all agree this game could really use a Nier style remake.
Well, okay, like I said, I think the better comparison, as I realized, like later, will be the Saga Frontier 1 remaster. It also helps that one, similar to the Legend of Mana one, is using Square Enix has been doing that using one particular AI protocol that has been developed recently for use for everyone, which takes sprite-based stuff and upscales them naturally using an algorithm. It's kind of weird, but it manages to work.
I wouldn't be surprised if they got him to help out the development of that, considering they worked on the Secret of Mana remaster.
Potentially. Actually, don't know. Considering also the sales of the Saga stuff has been doing well, and the producer, both Square and the producer, have been very happy about it. We're probably gonna see more of that stuff soon. So probably start Saga Frontier 2, getting the remaster treatment. All right, time to actually get to the Anima Relic in the corridor.
All right, let's go.
Plot twist: there was no Anima Relic.
I'm still surprised that Legend of Mana got a remake. Or Trials of Mana.
No, remake.
Trials of Mana got the remake.
Especially after Secret of Mana, that Secret of Mana remake
Okay.
on Vita.
Okay, Legend of Mana didn't get a remake, it got a remaster.
No, I was talking about Trials, but hold on. Because we need to see for whom this Anima Relic is.
Hey, Ellie. The Anima Relic. Who is it? Who's calling me? I don't know. What should I do? You were waiting for me?
Billy?
Are you okay there, Billy?
I see the light. It's calling out to me.
It's disgustingly bright.
Yeah, it is
Billy,
disgusting.
don't look into the light. No.
Billy?
Oh, look, it's an Omnigear. Did you see that? It looked like my gear.
So yeah, maybe something has happened to your gear. Yes, Billy's Remazuo gets to upgrade to El Remazuo with this.
So just walking up to a hologram upgrades your gear,
It's not a hologram, it's more of a getting contained. And
oh, hey!
Oh, great.
I wonder what happened to them.
all four of them at the same time. You girls again.
It's the Turks. Run.
Elements. I see you've gained a new gear that has been aligned with an Anima Relic.
You know that we should have been the ones to have it. We need stronger powers in order for Commander Ramses to realize his long-cherished desires.
Building of our ideal country. We can't allow you to take it.
So, come on. Let us have it.
No.
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 Well, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you for it. How about that instead?
That's more
Ever heard of
convincing.
self-defense, bitch?
You know what Solaris was doing to the surface dwellers. And you know what the situation is like now on the Earth. And yet you...
What the Gazelle do or whatever happens to the lands are not my concerns. Each of us have our own obligations to fulfill, and we don't have time to deal with affairs concerning you weak and inferior people.
Plus, we can just put salt on you and it's fine.
Dominia, do you truly believe that?
Hell yeah!
Indoctrination runs wild.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yes, look at yourselves, for instance. You, the strong and the superior, were the first to preserve yourselves without any mutations.
That is true, none of the main characters got mutated.
Is that not right?
Power and ability have nothing to do with it. It's called plot armor. It was pure coincidence we didn't mutate.
That's even worse. People are people, nothing more or less. I admit there are the weak and powerless, but that's no reason for us to forsake them. We are all the same human beings. So, you wish to give a hand to those who would be saved?
You're so nice and kind.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it's written. Leave me alone.
No, never.
Yeah, no, I was questioning the weird bit.
How commendable. But is that really what's best for mankind? I'm guessing the original Japanese line had something to it.
Yeah. You were all once surface dwellers.
Yeah, Dominion was the last of Elru, remember that.
Weren't you all forced to live under the oppression of Solaris?
Well, yeah, but they're doing it for their senpai Ramses.
And Serapita is a damn human to boot, so, yeah.
I know that you know how it feels to be a have-not, so why do you?
For Ramses, duh! The one that got the
Dominion still
hotspur.
has her crush.
All of them got a crush
Simps.
on Ramses.
No, it's implied that Serapita and Kelvena actually have a crush on each other.
Oh, so basically they're all just following Dominion's orders then.
Basically.
So it's essentially a simp squad by extension.
Listen,
Sorry,
this
sorry,
bitch has
sorry.
got it bad. We're just
sorry.
going along with it.
Live by one's own strength, stand on one's own feet. It's sad but true, but that the weak will be weeded out. Yeah. But we cannot look back. That is the providence of human existence.
You will be great, so great along with Senator Armstrong.
That is just the providence of those who are the haves.
'Cause you have everything.
Whoop.
So be it then. Show me this providence of yours that wishes to save the meager have-nots. Here I come! Ahem.
So yeah, you have to actually face them, all of them at the same time, and sad to say, Cheetan is actually very useful for this fight.
Alright,
because,
get 'em, girls!
Mostly because, as I mentioned, some of his ether spells, called Arcane, involves actually elemental defense. So using one of his first spells, which allows the next one to be applied to the entire team and not to just one person, you know, it allows you to build an effective defense against one of the elements of your choice, or, you know, considering how each of the elements are tied to one. Your first priority as a showcase should be Kelvena, because again, she's the one with the super hyper power, so you really don't want to be hit by her attack. But unfortunately, I forgot that that particular move of phase element is as the element that gets absorbed by Kelvena. Yes, so Serapit also has an annoying butt move that steals your EP as well.
How does that work? Does her butt clamp down on it?
It's more of a case of she distracting you more than anything, so there is that.
How old is she? Just want to know if we should get the FBI in on this or not.
No, all of them. All of them have something unique. Dominia is the last of Elru, hence why she has also pointy ears, you know. Kelvena is, if I recall correctly, she still was a land dweller, but she has immense, ether capabilities. So if I recall correctly, she was actually chosen to be in Gabler because of that. Dominia, I already mentioned. Polone is actually instead part cyborg, hence the whole positronic brain with a conflict for Star Trek.
God, that pose.
Yeah, and Serapita is a demi-human to boot. So I mean, if I find it particularly interesting how Ramsus managed to gather into the elements without anyone telling racist jokes towards her.
He probably threatened anyone with death if they did.
Probably. You have to remember what Sigurd and Chitan did said back in Bledavik all those parts ago. Ramsus, despite these showcasing the fact that he's losing more and more of his goddamn mind as the game goes on, Ramsus was a strong influential, as being a strong influential, person in Solaris. It was his decision to bring people like Chitan, in Gabler. So it does showcase the fact that he had, some respect. He did not become commander for nothing. But we will actually see his backstory eventually. Don't worry. Yes, Pedro.
Also, Serafita, when you ask for something, it helps us say please.
Also, don't stomp on people like a rabbit. Seriously.
Insert your own Usata Pekora joke here. I don't know which to take. Again, Emeralda is just there to be a damage dealer in these cases. Sure, she has elemental powers of her own, but it's best if you use her for, her Diablo skills. Interestingly enough, like Gabe said, Emeralda is also yet another character that doesn't need an equip slot. Ironically enough, Chitan has just gained one by having a sword that you can actually, although you cannot actually obtain that many new kind of models, only a couple, but there are not as much. But most of the party, as mentioned, don't really have a weapon. Like, if anything, again, okay, you have Billy's guns, Chitan getting a sword, and Ellie having a rod. Otherwise, all of you, okay, Bart has the whips too, but otherwise, everyone else fights either barehanded or in other case. Okay. I really wonder if it was a case of the developers not kind of struggling to have, a decent way to balance out the equipment, the offensive equipment. So.
Okay,
yes.
So Kavana, of course, does that pose. Talonios, what the hell kind of pose is Seraphina doing? She squats in defeat.
Yes.
Huh. I ain't studying you, girl.
Essentially, leave Dominia for last because while being high in terms of damage dealing, she's also the easiest to handle.
Fitting that the leader goes last.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, seriously, Coven, if that's a problem, maybe you should just wear a longer skirt.
It's also the case. It's also the case where Kelvene is also more fragile than the others. If you had noticed, it took only a bit to actually, give her, enough damage to actually KO her.
I guess it makes sense that Dominia would be the tankiest one, given that she's the Earth element.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot get over how Seraphina just squats like that.
Also, we'll just not point out that Emeralda has a move that's literally the Yellow Devil separation attack from Mega Man. Like, okay.
But she still looks adorable when she does it.
They can't heal each other, can they?
No, Kelvena actually can, hence one other reason why she's your first target.
Hey, Dominia's got a lot of stamina on her.
Don't worry, if I recall correctly, it's gonna be over soon enough. Yeah, I think it needs to be said also on this. I know that it also sounds a bit anticlimactic, but when it comes to obligatory plot-wise, this is your last major fight on the ground. All the other major bosses will be fought on gear, which is kind of a waste, admittedly, especially because at level 80, Faye gains 2 new Diablo skills that are super awesome, but you don't really have a chance to grind up for those until almost at the very end of the game, and there are no real fight on the ground, story-wise, that are justifying, you using those.
So it's a case of awesome but impractical.
Kinda. More like bragging rights than anything.
I mean, I guess it's a neat enough battle.
Oh no.
We may have fared poorly when we fought in the flesh, but we will finish you off in our gears! Now allow us to retreat. Come, follow me, so we may battle properly like gentlemen and ladies.
Yeah, the second phase.
We're not owned. We're not owned.
I love that. Follow me, even though you're already ahead of me. Like, I just... What?
I'm guessing she was saying follow me to them.
The others, yes.
Now, this is for real. What took you so long?
What meaning is there in fighting again?
Oh, shut up, X. Silence! Now we have no choice but to fight, because it looks too awesome. Now we will show you the true power of the elements. Get ready, because here we come!
Again, so you better give any time.
And shopkeeper Johnny is just standing there watching. Alright, Dej, you want a Megazord transformation? You did ask a lot of parts ago, but there you have it.
Now this makes
Where's the Power Rangers theme song?
I know that whoever owns it is very stingy about copyright, so I'm not taking a risk.
That's okay. You could have used the Battle for the Grid version.
That's okay. Go ahead, Whips. Do it.
Stronger than before.
Go Zia! Oh, my man! The Zia one! Excellent!
They both share the same tune, so it makes sense.
I believe Zia was definitely my favorite take on the theme.
Yeah.
Megazord activated.
We need Megazord power now! Oh god, I sound worse than when they had to dub over Jason when his actor quit in Series 2.
Hey, Faye, are we...
Wait.
No. Faye's like, no, I want to see where this is going.
Yes, Deji?
Wait, Austin St. John? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Three of the actors quit the show in Season 2 because of, the
contracts, and he also got on record saying, working on Power Rangers, you'd get as much as you'd work in McDonald's.
Yeah, and at least at McDonald's you don't have to do martial arts. At least I hope it. Unless stuff's changed in the US McDonald's that I don't know about.
I mean, considering how busy that place can be at, like, lunchtime, I wouldn't be surprised if the staff do have to do some martial arts just to get people to move the fuck away.
And there have apparently been some pay increases, so nowadays you probably would make more money working at McDonald's than you would have back then on Power Rangers.
Also, I really hope that if Square does decide to not necessarily remake, but remaster this, blessed eye bleedy, please.
Yeah, that's another. Well, okay, first of all, let me explain the fight. The G element activates first. The first thing they does is activating the Kishin sword. As in equipping with a sword. Other than that, they will start using different attacks based on the different elements, like say Tolone's Whirlwind, for example. Alternated with the sword attacks. Other than that, this fight is fairly easy enough, actually. Basically, all you need to do is just tank enough damage and deal it. We don't really have to prepare. And with the way, of course, abuse system id. Don't bother with the words that Melchior said to you in the sense, oh, you had to use it at a last resort. You can just spam it without real major negative consequences. The only real thing that you need to conserve is your fuel, obviously. Your clue to see which attack is about to get is the fact that at the bottom of the screen, the corresponding element is about to say, oh, I'm gonna take over for this one, So at that point, you need to use someone like Cheetan to use a particular, one of his particular elemental, defenses for that. But Shiri's remark remind me of something, that I could mention. As in, if you want to play this game right now. For the sake of authenticity, I did play, as I mentioned, the PS1 original version downloaded from the PlayStation Store on a PS3. Hence why it's also, for free, and the graphical output is not exactly super impressive. Sure, the PS3 allows you potentially to stretch for the widescreen, and other minor options, but the end result is not still that optimal. No. So I just allow it to be like this.
No, these games were intended for
Square actually remembered this game enough to add it to the PS3
Well,
catalog.
It's not just for that, Joe, but again, I want to save it for the final part. Trust me on that.
They already told us that Square has actually referenced this game plenty of times over the years, so it's not like they forgot it.
But if you actually want to play it on, say, an emulator, there are a couple of ROM hacks that actually do help. Unlike what we previously thought, there is actually no real proper fan translation, but there are a couple of things. There is one that fixes some of the PNG files of the portraits, because you can see some of them get a bit dragged, so there's a minor touch on that, and that uses strictly just the Japanese voice acting for the anime cutscene, which, again, no offense of the people who work there, but aside from the performance not being at optimal, there's also the lip syncing that is just fucked up. So probably mostly for the sake of having a better experience. I do understand that, although I don't want to diss again the American voice actors.
It's also...
I'm getting there. There is one that actually reduces, not by a lot, but a bit at least, the size of the font, allowing for the actual dialogue to flow a bit more naturally instead of it being interrupted for just one word. And also that revamps a bit the weight system, which I did mention that was just not really used. Supposedly it was supposed to change your defense or your attack depending on how much the character was going to eat, quote unquote, by using an item that was something that was edible. But there is also one that removes completely all of the battle flashes, all of them. It still doesn't, unfortunately, apply to the main game, where there are still, sequences that are, as sheer quote, eye-bleeding. But at least it's a step in the right direction, and probably something that I should have considered before recording this.
Basically, for now, the best way yet to do all those hacks that I mentioned, plus playing this game on DuckStation, which is the current best PS1 emulator. You can just render the game.
What's it called? DuckStation?
It's called DuckStation. Yeah, the guy called it DuckStation, and the icon of it is even a duck. Like, I don't know. I don't know, Joe, but the guy was feeling cheeky. I don't know what to tell you.
That is also true. Emulating also, while not necessarily allowing you to use widescreen, it does actually upscale all of this, both the sprite work and the actual polygonal model, so there is no actually jagged segment.
Well, the thing is, too, obviously, it makes little to no sense to try to stretch this image of a game like this, because these games were made to be running 4x3. Trying to artificially stretch them just causes bad results, like you said. And second, well, like they were saying, thanks to the emulation, you can render the graphics in 1080p, meaning the 3D models will look much crisper. Again, it's the same. Think of it. It's kind of like remember we recently did Simba's Mighty Adventure. It's not public yet, but you'll see it eventually.
Yeah.
And I played that on DuckStation, and yeah, thanks to the 1080p upscaling, the models look much crisper than they did on the original hardware.
This DuckStation, does it also self-record?
There's a core on RetroArch. You can just use that.
Okay.
But yes, the point is, if you want to play this game right now, but you're kind of scared about the flashing lights, there is a way to at least tone it down. And again, in hindsight, they probably should have actually used that method. But otherwise, for future games that aren't being properly re-released yet, I would at least consider, giving a look, because unfortunately, it was kind of thing of that time. Actually, since I've actually never played it, I actually do wonder if Einhander falls into the same category potentially, considering it's a shooter. We'll have to see eventually, I guess. But yeah, I do agree with Shiro. For a proper official re-release, that is a thing that at least has to be considered in some capacity, because, again, I didn't really notice, and it did not become very apparent to me, outside of a couple of cases which we haven't seen yet. One is in the next part, so I have already to warning right now, and for that one, for the actual render part, I will put an actual warning in the part, because that's one occasion where it becomes very ludicrous, trust me, on that front. But I can also see how the previous cases have, have not exactly aged on that front.
It's similar to... It's similar with me regarding subtitles, because ever since we started doing these commentaries, I've gotten to a point where I can almost already guess when it's subtitles that I'm gonna have to have Shiro not read any of this or not, because with the experience I've started realizing, okay, so this doesn't work. Like, for example, Life is Strange 3, aka True Colors, they still don't bother to have a completely black background for the subtitles. It's only that, you know, semi-transparent black background, you know? You'd think by this point they would have realized that you need to have an option to make it full black, but I guess not.
There we go, we're done.
Well, there's no excuse for something like Life is Strange. Older games like this pretty much all had this problem.
Some of them didn't even bother with subtitles.
So we're done with this nonsense?
We'll see. We'll see the elements. Don't worry. First, we have a dialogue against them, but we'll see them again.
Some things only the weak can feel.
We let them separate after beating them.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta separate the wheat from the joy.
But weakness does not make them servile. It's because they are weak that they can develop kindness and never look down on people.
It is just... But a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion.
That is where real human interaction comes from. Everyone has weaknesses. Even you did at first.
There you go, Teo. Marcus and McFeely are apparently Xenogears fans. It seems.
Yeah.
Your weakness drew you to each other.
Oh.
We're weak, but we're weak together, guys.
You're slightly less weak together. And made you grow strong. Never forget those feelings. When you all lived together, side by side.
And never forget that you had a Megazord and you still lost.
Wait! Are you trying to show us mercy, or are you just trying to show off?
Oh.
You've got us all wrong, Dominia. You need to deal with your inferiority complex.
What did you?
Our paths may be different, but our goals are the same.
Go home and be a family citizen of Elru, which doesn't exist anymore.
Thanks for reminding me, asshole.
That's why I can't fight you anymore. There's no reason for me to. That's all.
Well, I could just shoot you in the back, and
Ellie
then you
has
won't have to fight me
a lot
anymore.
of character.
Deji. And then Dominia's like, you must die by my hand!
Bitch, you ain't even...
Well, it looks like they showed us a thing or two.
You're not even fighting for yourselves. You're fighting for the sake of, like, her getting D.
It's a noble cause, damn it!
And I guess
but you're getting
Colin Savit had
from a
nothing to
loser.
say.
And then Dominia's like, I'm not weak.
Oh, right, the script. Having fled from the elements to try to take the relic to be used as a power to fulfill Randu's desires, we once again initiate our search for information on the whereabouts of the last known relic.
And that brought us to...
Which we'll actually find in the next part, actually. It's the next part, like I said, it's another dungeon similar to these, to this one. Again, the hunt for the relic, the Anima Relics, allows the game to have, you know, 2 full-fledged dungeons in quick succession at the very least on that front. So,
all right.
So yes, Pedro?
Just to carry on what you were saying too.
Yeah, let me just pose the artwork in the meantime. Go on.
You know what's the interesting thing, Shura? Like you were saying, the older games and stuff like that. Okay, here's the interesting thing about Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PS1. The game has that weird thing that games had at the time, where every time there's a cutscene, it puts black bars at the top and at the bottom to try to get that cinematic feeling and everything.
Yeah.
That being said, Shiroi, it does actually end up being cool in the end, because as a result, the subtitles are white letters on a completely black background, and as a result, they're actually easy to read. So I guess you know, like it actually works out in the end. So cool.
Anyway, the artwork of the day is essentially a concept art for the G elements. Again, clear Megazord Sentai inspiration, easy as that. Anyway, tuning for the next part, where we get the last known relic, Anima Relic. We'll see for whom actually resonate, and we might find an old friend along the way. See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.